I want to talk to you about a social network which I've been using a lot recently. It's really well designed, this social network, to encourage deep, respectful, honest conversations with real people around us. There are no anonymous trolls trying to polarize discussion. There are no algorithms trying to keep us in our own information bubble. And even when most of the social networks had lots of problems this week, this one continued working as normally. And I am talking about the sauna, the humanity's oldest and possibly best social network. So as you can probably tell, I grew up in Britain, and for most of my life, I never particularly liked saunas. The only saunas that I knew were these small, dark rooms in the gym that were really stuffy and poorly ventilated, and there's usually, a sign above the stove that says something like, "This is a dry sauna, please do not pour water on the stove." And I'm describing most saunas in Britain, but actually this is also kind of most saunas around the world. Saunas have never been more popular, but they have become dry saunas. And recently, saunas have become very popular. In fact, a home sauna has become the ultimate luxury status symbol of the rich and the famous. Apart from, for a lot of these saunas, not only are they dry, not only is there no steam, there's also often no stones, and no one to enjoy it with. It's become a solitary experience. Like so many other things in this world that used to be communal have now become solitary. And actually, just while I was preparing for this talk today, I saw in the British papers this week an example of a British celebrity who has an incredible new home sauna. Would you like to see it? Please don't be offended. I assure you that is not a fridge. That is supposed to be a sauna. And if that doesn't impress you, let me show you what a billionaire's sauna looks like. So this particular sauna I'm going to show you belongs to a billionaire who is renowned as a sauna enthusiast. He goes to this sauna every single day. So this belongs to Jack Dorsey. He runs a social network, and he still goes to the sauna alone every day. And I do think, actually, this is kind of like the Twitter of saunas, in that it gets you heated, but it's not. It's not really designed for kind of meaningful conversations. For one thing, there's only one seat in it. Okay, Estonians are quite difficult to impress. Let me show you then the top-selling sauna in the world. Are you ready? They do deliver to Estonia, if anyone here... No? Okay. Okay, I haven't impressed you yet. Let me show you then what the New York Post says is the best sauna for 2021. Yeah, I don't think this is going to take off in Estonia. And actually, about 5 years ago, I wouldn't know quite why you're all laughing, because kind of I grew up in Britain, but I moved to Estonia 5 years ago. And actually, I am a väliseestlane. I am a foreign Estonian. So I'm a third-generation exile. I have family that left 1944. And I moved back to Estonia 5 years ago, and I've started learning what it means to be Estonian again. And sauna is one thing I've had to learn again from scratch. And I realized, everything I thought I knew about the sauna, everything a lot of people around the world think they know about the sauna, is wrong. And actually, I started to realize how wrong I was when I started trying to find out who my family were in Estonia before they fled. And I was looking through records down in Mulgimaa, where my family are from, and I found records back in the 18th century, which had a really odd description next to one of my family members. It said, saunik. And so for non-Estonians, this means sauna person. Also for non-Estonians, this definitely does not mean my family were rich and famous back in the 18th century. Because actually, the more I learned about the sauna, the more I realized that throughout history, it's always been a multifunctional space. And one of the functions the sauna was used for was as a home. When you're building a homestead, it's the first place you would build and live there. And then when you need to get a farmhand in, if the farmhand doesn't have a place to live, the farmhand will live in the sauna and be a saunik. So I am descended from sauna people. And that's when I started to realize there is so much more to the sauna, historically and culturally, than a little stuffy room at a gym or a little cupboard at home where you can microwave yourself alone. So since then, I've been visiting hundreds of saunas with my partner, Annie. We've visited hundreds of saunas around Estonia, around the world, to research the history, traditions of the sauna, the people who are keeping it alive. I now know you do pour water on the stones. And now I've had the reverse culture shock, actually, going to Germany, for example, where you get told off for speaking in the sauna. Because the one thing I've realized more than anything in Estonia is that the sauna is a social experience. And even when I go back to Britain, there's nothing I can compare it to. It's not the saunas. In fact, maybe the closest comparison is the pub, because the pub is where we interact with our friends and family in a similar way. Now, back then, again, a bit for non-Estonians, so back in the 18th century, all saunas were smoke saunas. So the room fills up with smoke, and then you ventilate it before going in to bathe. It's not until the end of the 19th century that actually some innovative Finns start putting chimneys on their saunas. And then that idea spreads to Estonia, and suddenly it becomes the Finnish sauna with a chimney on it. It's not until the 1920s, actually, that chimney saunas start to outnumber smoke saunas in both Finland and Estonia. And then in the 1930s, innovative Finns again start experimenting with electric stoves. So today we think of like traditional Finnish saunas, ancient Finnish saunas, and we think of kind of modern electric saunas. Actually, those two ideas are from pretty much the same era. They're innovations from the same era. However, the important thing is that the principle is the same. It's about heating rocks, and it's about bathing in the steam that generates from them. And it is a communal experience. It's always been a communal experience. So I've been on my own mind-shifting journey, but now I'm going to take you guys on a journey in the opposite direction. And we're going to try and figure out, how did saunas become so famous around the world? How did they become misunderstood? And how can we shift minds back to like what a real sauna is? And as crazy as it sounds, like most English speakers had not heard the word sauna until about the middle of the 20th century. So the global popularity of the word sauna is so unlikely, for two reasons. First of all, like back when my family were living in the sauna in the 18th century, the population of Estonian speakers had declined to less than 100,000. In the past couple of years, in the past couple of hundred years, every Finnic language has at some point been on the path of extinction. And the other reason why it's unlikely that kind of this Finnic word, this Finnic concept would become world famous is that actually there are so many different traditions around the world that are very similar to the sauna. Many ancient cultures used hot rocks and steam for bathing in a very similar way. So why did the sauna become so famous? So I was looking through some newspaper reports from the US and Britain in the 1950s to see how people reacted when they were first introduced to the sauna. And there are some common themes. It's often described as like a form of torture or cannibalism. And most of these reports, by the way, they come from foreign correspondents and travel writers, mostly based in Finland. So you can see here, a sauna is a sort of Turkish bath with overtones of sadism, masochism, parboiling, and New England witchcraft. So, one thing that's really interesting there is a sort of Turkish bath, because it's a reminder that actually there were so many other different types of sauna-like traditions which were much more famous. And now if you go to any spa in the world, you say, what's a Turkish bath? They'll say, it's a kind of sauna. There's been a complete reversal because it's the Finnic sauna concept, which has now become kind of world famous. You do see some... actually, people reading these reports wouldn't know how to pronounce the word sauna, which is sauna in Finnish. However, one very helpful journalist did write, it's pronounced like Lorna. And that article was syndicated all over America. It was very widely read. And so we have a new word born, which continues to infuriate many Finnish people today, that sauna became the English word. And there's two words that come up a lot in these reports I want to quickly highlight. The sauna is often described like being being cooked alive in a stove, or it's like being boiled in a stew. We're going to come back to that, why that's important. Now let's jump ahead to the next couple of decades. This is 1960s, 1970s. Suddenly there's an explosion of interest in the sauna, but it's no longer from travel writers over in Finland. It's about people in America and elsewhere building their own saunas locally. And as you can see, the concept is getting quite misunderstood as well, because a lot of people kind of building these saunas and running them, they don't really know, they didn't grow up with the tradition, they don't know how to do it properly. But one thing that's really influencing the massive growth of interest in saunas is the fact that the electric stove enables them to be built in more places than ever before, like deep inside buildings, in health clubs. And actually, these health club owners are really risk averse. They're kind of worried about their electric stoves catching fire, having an electrical fire of water poured on them. So they start telling people that it's a dry sauna. And this myth really starts to develop through this time. So the word starts getting misused, it starts getting reused. As sauna becomes a buzzword, it gets used for a whole load of different products. Anything that has anything remotely to do with heat therapy becomes a sauna. So we have sauna hot pants, sauna whatever that is. And you do see some pushback as well, actually. Here's some Finnish sauna enthusiasts writing to their ambassador in America, demanding that the word sauna is banned from being used from all these other products. They wanted it protected like champagne is. Not a bad idea. But by this point, the sauna has become a dry, solitary experience. And actually, these Finnish sauna enthusiasts, their worst enemy is just being developed at NASA, which around this time discovered infrared wavelengths. And it was a doctor in Japan that figured out that far infrared wavelength could be used as a new form of heat therapy to heat the skin. And that was launched onto the US market towards the end of the 70s. And it's launched as the infrared sauna, a superior form of detoxing. And one thing that comes up a lot in this coverage is you'll see it says the sauna is kind of like 1,000 years old, or it's about 800 years old. That number comes up a lot. The reason, that is also a myth, but there's a good reason for it, which is that written records of the sauna tradition, written records of this region begin in around the 13th century. And so written records of the sauna begin in that period as well. It doesn't mean that the sauna is actually 800 or 1,000 years old. And one reason we know that is the clue is in our language. We can use cognates, which are sibling words like sauna, sauna, and saun in Finnish and Estonian, to trace the history of our languages much further back in time. And every Finnic language has a cognate for sauna, and they come from a Proto-Finnic word, which is sakna. And where does sakna come from? This bit might surprise you, actually. It's not a Finno-Ugric word. They didn't bring it with them from the Urals. Actually, sakna comes from stagna in Germanic. And sakna and stagna probably meant the stack of stones that was heated in a sauna. Stack. Now, as it happens, stack also comes from the word stagna. So there's a direct descendant. That when we go into sauna today and we talk about stack in English, stack is directly related to the word sauna. So that's a stack of stones. But if all people around the world are kind of saunaing in old times, even Germanic peoples, even like Old English peoples, what word were they using for sauna? And I've actually already shown them to you. Because actually when these reports about sauna started emerging in the mid-20th century, these writers were using the exact same terminology that used to be used in Old English. So stove was an old word for sauna in English, and so was stew. It's not until the 16th century that these words are first used for cooking. Now, just because the Proto-Finnic people borrowed their word for sauna from Germanic languages, it doesn't mean that they borrowed the whole tradition from them. It just means that that word stuck for the kind of building. And the reason why we know that is because a lot of other sauna-related words go all the way back to Proto-Uralic. So the Proto-Finnic people kind of spread from the Urals, and their predecessor language was Proto-Uralic. And one of the most important words is the word for sauna steam, which in Estonian is leil. And that comes from a Proto-Finnic word, which is lulu, something like the Finnish pronunciation today. And that comes from a Proto-Uralic word, which is levle, and that means spirit or breath, the very essence of life. It helps explain why leil is such an important word in Estonian today. And it makes sense because, the sauna is the traditional place of birth. The sauna tradition has long been associated with rebirth. And so sauna steam is such a sacred word that comes from the word breath or spirit. But, I've even been told off by Estonians, actually, for translating leil as sauna steam, because they say, oh, that's very disrespectful. It's like translating Holy Communion as bread and wine. It's so much more important culturally, which is fair enough. Oops, pretend you didn't see that. The sauna has become globally famous. It has great brand recognition as a social network, but there are so many imitations. People don't always know how to use it properly. And I think, if English speakers don't have a word for sauna steam anymore, why don't we gift them one? Why don't we make leil the first Estonian word in English, the first Estonian word to enter common usage globally? Because if English speakers had a word for sauna steam, it might help them understand the sauna better as a communal experience. As we've seen throughout history, saunas belong to everyone. And if they could have a word again, it would help them understand their own history as well as ours. So, Annie and I, when we've been going to saunas around the world, we've been telling people the meaning of leil. We've been trying to encourage people to use the word leil. And so we need your help. Let's get leil into English, because this is Estonian Language Week. Today is Finno-Ugric Day, when we celebrate the continued existence of the original sauna people. So let's get leil into English. And finally, I mentioned that my family fled from the Soviets, ended up in Britain. I'm no longer just a user of the sauna, I'm now a developer too. So I'll show you my sauna, because actually I'm now living in Estonia again, and I have one of the trucks that the Soviets left here. And this is now a sauna, and this is where we're actually renovating it with the best of Estonian design and technology so that we can celebrate Estonian culture and freedom and enjoy leil here with more people around the world. So thank you so much for listening, and I wish you many years of happy leil.